Hello, I'm at Fonte's Teacher Training College in Sittard today, and I'm talking to Heidi van der Tiller, who has been involved in the process of tandem learning for quite some years now. Hello, welcome Heidi.
Thank you.
For those people who have never heard of the word tandem learning, what actually is tandem learning?
Tandem learning is where you match two students from different countries in a pair, and they help each other try to achieve their personally set learning goals. In our case, it's second language learning. So they work in a bilingual pair and they help to achieve a better skill in their second language, in their target language.
Mm-hmm. You talk about their own learning aims, or what do you mean by this? Is it something that they have to do themselves before they start, or?
No, it's part of a course. Again, in our case, the Tandem project is part of a writing course. Students correspond with an email partner in an English-speaking country who's a native speaker of English, and they try to develop their writing skills in formal English, which they can't learn from textbooks. And also the secondary aim is to have some cultural exchange, so learn about the culture of the country where the target language is spoken.
Okay. So it's mutually beneficial.
Right, yes, there are two principles we always say. Tandem learning should be mutually beneficial, so to both partners. And also it should be autonomous learning. So the students set their own goals, which things in writing do they want to improve, how do they want to do that, so they make arrangements with that, they discuss that with their partner, and they do that autonomously. So it's teacher independent learning, partially, of course we do keep a check, but it's time independent, place independent, and teacher independent learning. Okay.
How long have you been involved in tandem learning?
Our English department has been involved in this international project initiated by the University of Bochum in Germany from the early 1990s. So it's quite some years already.
Okay. Could you describe, just in general, some of your experiences in tandem learning?
Yes. So far, students have always been very enthusiastic about the project because for one thing, they like to work with the computer, and of course they are used to doing so more and more each year. They also like the idea of actually communicating with a real person instead of rather contrived writing assignments in a traditional course. So those are a few big pluses of the project. One setback, however, is that Dutch is a small language, and that's always very difficult for us to find enough partners, English-speaking partners, to work with, and that is mainly that's the main frustration for some of our students.
Who are your partners? Who do you work with?
Until now, most of our partners are students from the University of Sheffield who study German, and as a second language they study Dutch, so it's not their main course. So there is a slight difference in the way they participate.
Their motivation is different.
Yeah, motivation, but the workload is different for them. The requirements are different for them. In this respect, that our students are really required to do so much work for the course, and they can earn a credit. The English students don't. It's more voluntary.
I see. Okay, so that may make it very difficult to plan a course every year.
Yes. Okay. That is the main difficulty in planning.
Okay. We talked a little bit about the advantages or the pitfalls rather of tandem learning, and a bit about the advantages as well. Now, you've been involved in this program for the last 6 years. What to you are the main advantages of tandem learning?
I think that it is maybe the only way of learning everyday informal language. You can't learn it from any textbook because the language changes, right? So that's what they pick up. Apart from that, it's authentic. They correspond or communicate mostly with peers who are learners too, so there is less inhibition to ask each other to help each other. And since in this project everybody works in a bilingual network, in a bilingual pair, they are required to do half their communication in their native language, half the communication in the target language. So you practice your target language, but you also supply your partner with authentic language for their target language.
Yeah.
So that's a big plus as well.
Does that also mean that at times you are the learner, so to speak, but at other times you're the teacher as well?
That's right.
Is that an advantage or is that a problem?
It's not a problem, because this is one of the things we say to our students. I have to teach students who are going to be teachers, so it's an additional aim for them. But the English students who take part do not do teacher training. But we always stress, you are not teachers in your native language, but you are the most proficient user of the language that they could wish for. So in that respect, you are able to correct them or give hints how to correct them, and not necessarily the explanation behind it. That's not the aim. The aim is that you can provide authentic correction.
Okay. Before you talked about setting your own goals, setting your own aims. Isn't that very difficult for students to do?
It is. It is. When we started out doing this project, it was very difficult for them because they were not used to setting their own goals and describing, formulating their own learning targets. The last 2 years we've also paid more attention to that, and we have counselling sessions every month, for instance, to help them formulate their learning goals and also to assess them, to evaluate them.
Okay.
Yes. And there are other tools that we use for them to see if they actually achieve their goals. For instance, they keep records of the errors that they make, the corrections that they do, the explanations that they have to find out themselves.
Like a type of portfolio?
In a portfolio, so in the portfolio you have this error protocol that they have to tick off the errors.
Okay. Would you say that it makes students more aware of their own language?
That too, yes, yes. We do give hints if you do want to explain more about the Dutch mistakes that your partner makes. You can look things up in digital manual or something like that. But they're not teachers of their native language, but some have that interest. And yes, so they do become more aware of their own language.
Okay, excellent. I understand that there are different types of tandem learning exercises. You could do it face-to-face, or you could do it at a distance. Could you tell us something about that?
Yes. We also have a German department here, and they also do face-to-face tandems. Face-to-face, you could say you can do that through video conferencing, so that would be at a distance, but you would still have film and sound, of course. Here, since we are in the south of Holland, very close to the German border, they actually meet in Sittard or in Aachen. So the students go and visit each other and have a real face-to-face meeting, which of course gives you the opportunity to not only practice your writing skills, but also your oral skills, and maybe also cultural specific body language, things like that. Yes.
Okay. Do you have any experience with video conferencing?
Very little, very little. We try it out once in a while, but it's not a structural component in the course, no.
Some people argue that it might be a disadvantage using a webcam or seeing each other face to face, as you become less anonymous.
That's true.
Do you think that's a problem?
Yes. No, I don't think so, although everybody will agree that if you have email contact only, it's still fairly anonymous. So far I have not heard of English or German students in our school that find it difficult to actually meet up with people in the flesh or through video conferencing. No.
Okay. What do you think makes a good tandem learner?
Yes.
What sort of requirements does he have to meet, or how does he get the most out of tandem learning?
A big thing is self-discipline, because they have to arrange things themselves, set up the project themselves, discuss with their partner how they're going to help each other achieve their goals, and so on. So it's something that they really have to have, self-discipline. Of course, we do counsel, but they will still have to do most of the work. So you have to be reliable as a partner. That is the main thing, and that means checking your mail regularly and also answering your mail regularly. If you don't do that, the motivation will disappear, because I think everybody knows if you receive mail, you like to respond. If not, your motivation will go. Yes. So that is one thing. Another thing is what makes you a good tandem learner is if you also stick to the requirements that have been laid out, either by your teacher, by the course, or between the two partners.
Okay. Do you think that tandem learning can be started at any level, so beginners or intermediate, or do you think that you need to have a certain level before you start learning another language this way?
Yes, in the case of English, I think in our secondary schools and higher education there are hardly any real beginners. So for English it's not really a problem. If you are a real beginner in another language, say Spanish, you take it for the first time, I think it's a bit difficult, because you will at least have to be able to speak it or write it and read it a little bit. But say from a few months of training on, you could. And also pairing up partners from different levels is not a problem, because you all have your own personal targets and you help each other at the level of your target. So it's not really a problem if your level is low, and also it's not a problem if your levels differ within the partnership.
Is it essential to have a common language between two language learners?
I would say so, yes. If you don't have a common language, it's very difficult to communicate. Yes. It's not so that you need to share the native language or the target language, both, like we do in our project. Of course, our English students could correspond with German students in English, because that could be their common goal. So that is an option. But one common language, you need it.
It's necessary.
Yes.
Okay. Could you tell us something about the way you've organized your tandem learning at Von Ties?
What we do is we do some introduction work at the beginning of the academic year. Students look into how they can write their work and how they can check their partner's work. We pay attention to netiquette in that respect.
What do you mean by netiquette?
Well, simple things like typing things in capital letters means shouting, for instance, or the way you address people, or that sort of thing.
The do's and the don'ts of email writing.
Yes, yes. Although most of them nowadays know all that.
Yes.
But still, they also do some exercises. They get some authentic Dutch work from English students from previous years, and see what they could do with that. Which corrections would you add to that, and which not? Because you always tell them select a limited number of corrections, for instance, because it's no fun for neither partner to get a letter in return which is filled with mistakes and corrections. So say 10 corrections per letter, things like that. So they all, that's the introductory work that they do. And then from October to May, they just spread the work themselves. They just dose the frequency of the contact themselves. They're responsible themselves for that. And then at the end, they do an evaluation with me.
Okay. Do they do some type of introduction exercises first? In what way do they introduce themselves to their new partner?
Well, after the introduction that I do with them here, before they actually start corresponding with their partners, that's what I just explained. Once they start corresponding, the first few emails that they write are very short and very basic, really just introducing themselves, who they are and what they